Thank you for staying with us. It's time now to take a review of the major headlines on Nigerian newspapers. And this morning, we will begin with the Nature News. The major headline here says, Coal Money Oil and Gas Project attracts over $3 billion investments, Buhari reveals. Coal Money Oil and Gas Project attracts over $3 billion investment, Buhari reveals, restates the net zero carbon emission by 2060. To the front page of the Nation newspaper now, oil. Buhari once against Niger Delta mistakes in North. President inaugurates integrated oil business in Gongola Basin. Buhari warns against Niger Delta mistakes in North. President inaugurates integrated oil business in Gongola Basin. All the details on the front page of the Nation newspaper. To the Nigerian News Direct now, mixed reactions over inflation control as CBN again raises MPR to 16.5%. Plans to reduce volume of 500 naira, 1,000 naira notes in circulation. Raising interest rate alone won't tame Nigeria's inflation. Experts are speaking there. All right, all the details on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. To the Daily Times now. Tackling insurgency, Buhari's biggest achievement, Aregbesola says investigation concluded into Kuje prison break, explains why report can't be made public. Explains why report can't be made public. All the details on the front page of the Daily Times. Mike?
Yeah, I have the leadership here. That's where we're starting from here. And it's focusing on 2023 presidency. Christian leaders quiz Atiku Obi Adebayo over plans for Nigeria. We won't endorse any presidential candidate, says can. Give us a chance. We will make Nigeria work again. PDP, LP, flag bearers are saying this. You see all this on the front page of the leadership newspaper. First News is next, and he said budget of transition. Governor Masari weeps. And Governor Masari, Bello Masari is the governor of Katsina State, and he presented his the last budget. He presented as governor of Katsina State. That's the First News. And then let's go to this Nigeria. Excuse me. This Nigeria is focusing on consolidated revenue fund charge. 22 billion naira approval documents missing, says Justice Ministry. A Senate committee orders permanent secretary to reappear December 1 with documents on service void votes, or service wide votes rather. Right, this is what you see on the front page of this Nigeria. And then let's go to the Punch newspaper, 16-point Punch newspaper, saying that federal government domestic airlines legal battle kicks off on Thursday. Okay. All right, private sector predicts factories shut down, higher bad loans. All right, you see that on the front page of the Punch newspaper on national carrier. Federal government domestic airlines legal battle kicks off on Thursday. And then Business Day is the last one that we have here. And it is talking about how corrupt tardy process prolongs passport pickups. How prolonged tardy process process prolongs passport pickup. That's what he has in there.
All right, Mike. Let's look at one of the stories on the papers this morning, one that affects everyone with regards to the CBN, increasing the interest rate to 16.5%. And, reactions have begun. This is coming after it increased the interest rate from, I think, 15.5% about 2 months ago. And now it is increasing it to 16.5% to tame inflation. And a lot of, experts have come out to say that this alone cannot tame inflation. Although the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, has said that even the last increase, that's the 15.5%, had yielded some positive results, and so went ahead to increasing it now. But it doesn't seem like experts are seeing that.
Well, if you see what the CBN is doing, it tells you that there are desperate moves to ensure that the inflation rate reduces, and that's why even the Naira redesign is part of it. You will notice all of this different activities. However, I think the biggest, from the analysis that we are seeing, the biggest impact that the move or the strategy by CBN is going to rake in will be this redesigning of the Naira notes. Because, like it was said, over 85% of the Nigerian currency is on the streets, is in people's hands and pockets and warehouses and homes and, and vaults, not in the system. The moment you have that kind of situation, do anything, the impact will not be there, because the policy that is brought, takes care of only the remaining 15% that is within the system. So that is why the CBN is coming up with this policy. How that is going to be sustained is totally a different thing, because if the monies are, are redesigned, like it will be unveiled today
by the president.
By the president, if it is redesigned, and then we see the new currency, and then eventually by the 31st of January, the old notes are no longer recognized, and then we have new, what do you call it?
Notes.
New notes. What then? Because if I have access to the cash, I can begin to stockpile again. So except the CBN cashless policy is going to be strict enough to say, okay, if you're going to buy some certain things, you will not be buying it via cash anymore. You have to buy it through maybe the eNaira portal or anything else. Now, one of the networks I understand is coming up with a system where you can buy things with your credit on the phone. So all of that strategy are in place. But how is the CBN partnering all of this, especially when the banks sometimes are seen to work in a way that it creates a leeway or flexible window for people who trade and people who do all of these things?
They are the ones bearing the brunt as we speak.
They bear the brunt, but the point there is that also the banks, in a desperate move to also gain cash, sometimes some of the staff of banks can compromise the system because they want monies into their own vaults as a way of shoring up the strength of the bank. So all of these things are there. So it frustrates the central bank sometimes, but everybody knows that the central bank is still the godfather of banks in the country.
But they will also say that increasing interest rates is a global phenomenon, because in the US, they do that. Ghana has done that. We've seen South Africa and all of that. These are measures they have
Countries
been taking.
in Europe are doing that.
They are all doing that, but the impact, how are we cushioning the effect of all of this is another aspect.
Yeah, the challenge is that, it is easy to say, oh, even in the US, in Canada, in the UK, in Germany, they are doing this and they are doing that. But you see, because they have other things that can cushion, like you said, that can cushion or absorb that shock. They have other social issues, other infrastructure, financial infrastructure, and all of that, and policies to absorb the shock. We don't. That is why when government comes up with this and comes up with that, you see, sometimes you don't find the impact. And then those who benefit sometimes, the benefit stops.
Doesn't trickle
down. It doesn't trickle down. It stops at somewhere up there. So at the end of the day, but we have majority of Nigerians, the majority of Nigerians are people who are at that level. Who the inflation bites hard on them. Now, if you're talking about businesses, how many blue chip business do we have in Nigeria? If you compare that to the SMEs, in fact, Nigeria is a makeup of SMEs. Startups of all kinds. Beautiful ones, I must say, in great extent, but then they are all startups, they are all SMEs at that level. They are the ones bearing the brunt. So the point there is that a startup, for instance, that comes up, either fintech or whatever kind of startup that comes up and has been able to raise some initial capital, up to, say, 20, 30, 50 million. And then when it comes to the running cost of a startup, even if they say, okay, for taxes, don't pay taxes for a little while, give you a moratorium, don't pay taxes for a little while, maybe 2 years, 3 years, as the case may be. But when you look at your running costs, fuel alone, we talked about fuel
Yes,
earlier.
earlier.
You notice that up to about 2, 3, 4 million naira you'll be spending on fuel. That is not staff salaries. That is not other thing, materials that you need. So at the end of the day, what it takes to run a business in Nigeria is close to a miracle. That is what the thing is.
Yes.
So the point there is government has to start looking into all of those measures that they have to put in place to ensure that Nigerians actually benefit. Because as it is, Nigerians are used to doing everything on their own.
That's it. That's it. They are their own government.
We are all governments in our own respects.
Their
But
own
we do all of
governments.
these things by ourselves.
It's really unfortunate,
Yeah.
but.